This is part 3 to the series of beginning research for the annotated bibliography. This session will cover how to correctly read your sources and how to build from your notes your annotated bibliography. So I have found this article from our databases, and remember I had mentioned 3 databases that I suggested you use: the Academic Search Complete, CQ Researcher, and Opposing Viewpoints. And the any type of website should be used last. Again, if you use a website outside of our databases, you must have prior approval from me to use it. I highly suggest that you try to find sources from our databases, but again, remember that takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, and you can go back and refer to part 1 and part 2 about how to begin your research, how to use the Boolean search words, and all of that. Okay, so you see that I've already highlighted certain things in the article, and it helps me because this is a PDF file. I pulled it from our academic databases, and I saved it so that way I can make annotations using the tools from PDF. And if you have Adobe, you have access to the. So the first thing that I did, I always read the abstract because I want to make sure that the information or the article that I am using will relate to my topic. So I always read the abstract, and the first thing that caught my eye was that this article explores the 2006 campaigns of these African American Republican candidates. And again, I am making the argument about voter apathy and how politics is changing to get more minorities to vote. So it immediately caught my eye, and I like the way the argument is structured. So typically I always look at the article just to get a gist of what it looks like, to make sure that it's something that is worth me reading. So again, on the first page I'm also introduced to the author, and I'm given his credentials as well, which is a part of ethos, but it's the credibility part of ethos. Remember, ethos is created a number of ways. It's not just the author's credentials. So keep that in mind when you talk about ethos. You have to be open to talk about every aspect of ethos, and you'll see that in the annotated bibliography I've created. So after I've looked at it, I realized that this is something worth me reading thoroughly. So as I was reading, I noticed key things that caught my eye. And the first thing caught my eye was this passage here: increased outreach is paramount importance as the party struggles to maintain its position in American politics as the country becomes more racially diverse, with minorities growing as a percentage of the American electorate. So again, this ties directly into what I am looking for. So I went through here and I made annotations. Like I said, it helps me, makes it easier for me to make my annotated bibliography rather than reading and then typing, because that's where plagiarism oftentimes happen. So again, you'll see that I've made plenty notes here that helps me understand this information that I've added. What's also interesting about his article is that he also lists his research questions, which is something that I'm constantly mentioning to you guys, that your question, you can't do any type of research unless you have a research question. So here's his 2 research questions: how did black support for the Republican nominee in 2006 races differ from that of 1998 and 2002 of the same offices? To what extent did Republican voters cross over to vote for Democrats in the general election rather than vote for the black Republican nominee candidate? So these are exploratory questions. They're not questions that comes with a simple yes or no answer. He's forced to explore the argument. So here are, some other things that he lists. He provides his data, He also goes into giving the opposition, and this is very important with any type of opposition. To show that you are unbiased and that people should believe you, you must recognize the opposition. Even though you may not agree with them, they have reasons for their beliefs, and you do not want to ignore those beliefs. One thing that did catch my eye that I would have rathered, he says still others, referring to the opposition. I would have liked for him to tell me who these others are. He doesn't tell me here, but later on he does give some more specifics. So he gives the opposition such cynicism is heightened by the fact that GOP pronouncements wanting African American votes are not always aimed at Black America. They are often offered for the consumption of white middle class suburban voters who agree with the Republican economics but don't feel comfortable voting for a party that has a reputation for apathy, or worse, toward African Americans and other minorities. So he recognizes what the opposition has said, but then he goes into giving the specifics. He gives a specific person who's shared his or her beliefs about this idea of cynicism and apathy to African Americans. Now you also see that my colors have changed. I went from a aqua blue to a darker purple, and that is because this is where he starts to make his assertions. So his argument initially begins inductively, meaning that he starts off with some specific evidence, and from that evidence he comes to a conclusion, and now he's moving deductively, where he makes more assertions and then he uses his evidence to support it. And a logical argument should use both. It should move either deductively and then inductively, or vice versa. It should not be just one or the other. A really great argument is going to comprise both of them. So that's why I went and highlighted things in purple, because this is where I see his assertions while he goes into supporting those assertions. So you see that I have a lot of comments. So again, it makes it easier for me to refer to as I start building my annotated bibliography. He has some charts. I didn't spend a lot of time on the charts again because I'm not doing my paper now. I'm just critiquing and evaluating the argument and structure of the author. So he goes into more specifics. He makes a lot of concessions, which I highly think are important, because again, it doesn't weaken your argument. It shows that you understand the limitations to your argument. There is no such thing as a complete right or a complete wrong. An argument is about the soundness of your assertion. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's the soundness of it. Can you make a logical argument but still be open to make those concessions? Admit when there is something erroneous or lacking in your argument. So again, I highlighted key things that I liked that he addresses. Things that are underlined, I really found them to be quite intriguing, so I underlined them because I will use them later for the paper. So again, he makes another concession here as far as his data. So it goes on and on. Some of the information that I skipped over because again, I don't need it as of right now. I'm just looking at this article to see if it's worth me using for my research, and it is. And then again, he gives his conclusion that goes back to his overall assertion about the GOP and how they use black candidates. So it's a great article. It's 11 pages. So it's long enough for me to find great information, but it doesn't overwhelm me. And again, remember I said that when you start looking for your sources, you want to build some type of criteria. So moving on to my annotated bibliography. The beginning of your annotated bibliography, as detailed from the writing assignment, is that I need some specifics. I need the topic under the 5 that I have listed. Then you need to provide your specific subject, your targeted audience. Remember, your targeted audience must be professionals. It cannot be a general audience, because the more specific you are, the better chances that you're going to find research and avoid those generalizations. And again, your research questions should be an exploratory question. Here's my question. I had mentioned it before, asking how has the look of politics changed to win over minority voters. And then here's my thesis. Now, your thesis is what they call a working thesis, but by the end of your annotated bibliography, you should be able to make a clear stand on your issue. And again, and the only way you can do that is if you do solid research. So you need all this information at the very beginning and then followed by your annotated bibliography. Your citations should be in alphabetical order, followed by a brief summary, and then your evaluation. So the assignment sheet says that your annotations should be between 7 to 9 sentences long. Mine have 9 sentences, and I'm going to walk you through all 9 sentences. So the first sentence here is the author's claim. I just summarize it, I get to the point, and I move on. The second sentence is the evidence that he used to support his analysis. And then the third sentence is his conclusion. Okay, 3 sentences all for just the summary. Again, your summary should just give me the author's claim, the best piece of supporting evidence, and then the conclusion, and then you move on. It should not be very long. It should, again, a summary is just the overall gist of the issue. You should spend more time on the evaluation part, and the evaluation is where you look into the author's the use of ethos, pathos, and logos. Now remember, with argument, there may not be any pathos, and you just don't worry about it, just move on. So I begin by giving the author's credentials. Since he has both a BA and PhD in political science, and he's written books and articles, he is a reputable man. I can trust the information that he provides. His argument is logical, following the methodology of a study. His initial arguments begin inductively, as I mentioned, listing the questions he wants to answer, but then he moves deductively, resulting in his conclusion about the GOP's future. The author uses numerous concessions about the limitations of the argument, and again, that's still all a part of ethos, because again, he has shown me that he does not know all the answers, but he is trying to explore the issue, and again, that shows that he is trustworthy. He also shows respect for the opposition when detailing their particular concerns about targeting black candidates. And again, he doesn't just fly over it. He gives a lot of details in the rationale, and he gives specific evidence that helps to show that he is trying to be unbiased about the issue. And then throughout the entire argument, his tone and research remains unbiased. So even though it's primarily logical, but he has the credentials and he's fair and unbiased, makes this a great argument. I would love to use this for my paper. Now, and that's exactly what you're going to do for your annotated bibliography. Again, this is only 9 sentences, but they're complex sentences. They're not simple sentences, but it's only 9 sentences long, and I believe the whole entire annotation is 250 sentences, 250 words long. So it's not very, it's not sharp, but it's not long. It's doable, but it takes time. Reading your articles thoroughly, making notes about them, and then making your annotations from your notes, not from the article, but actually from your notes. That would avoid you plagiarizing, feeling forced to use direct quotes, which you are not allowed to use direct quotes. It should be in your words, summaries and paraphrases. And it just makes your life a lot easier. But again, it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. And each one of your citations should be in alphabetical order. And again, so it should be your citation followed by your annotation for each one of your sources. Okay, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I am happy to do whatever I can to make this a lot easier. I will also email all of you these handouts, so that way you have a point of reference for later. Good luck.